So we have a special treat for you today. As you come out of meditation and come into the room, we are looking at the spiritual lessons of this holiday season. And in the Judeo-Christian canon of religions alone, there are about 12 different holidays that are celebrated in this season. But when we pan back out to a larger community of spiritual traditions, there are innumerous holidays. We celebrated Diwali, the Hindu tradition of light coming into the world, all of this revolving around solstice and around the beginning of the new year. And we're going to just take a little snapshot of a couple different traditions here. We celebrated Hanukkah a couple Sundays ago, and it's the Festival of Light. And on Thursday was the shortest day of the year for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. And each day after that, more and more light creeps into the world, to our physical space. And can we use that analogy for us to have an awakening? And every day, as we go forward from here, more and more light, more and more truth, more and more love, more and more peace creeps into our life, so that little by little, we are transformed. For those of you who are like me, I always can set some really amazing goals and do them for about a day or a week. But I know when I allow incremental change into my life, and baby step by baby step, I learn a new skill and a new way of practicing. So I invite us into that in this solstice tradition. And what I'm going to first invite up, though, is someone to talk to us about the metaphysical interpretation of the birth narratives. And he is our own David Monticalvo. David comes from, yeah, you can give him applause. David comes from a traditional faith tradition, a very traditional Christian, and he's been a spiritual seeker for his whole life, right?
Yes.
Or very much so. And when he came to us, he just dove back into the new thought and the unity understanding of the teachings, and he's actually in study to become a licensed teacher or something else. I'll leave that open for right now. We'll see where his studies lead him, and he's going to talk us through the birth narrative. So I give you David Monticalvo.
Thank you. The story of Christmas begins with Mary. For those of you who may not be familiar, Mary was a common, ordinary young girl, presumably a virgin, and she was chosen by God to bring forth Christ into earth. Now, this story of the virgin births is not exclusive to Christianity. There are Egyptian deities and Roman leaders who have said to have been born of virgins. But the idea, the concept is the divine wants to be birthed in humanity. So that sounds great, but what does that mean for today? It means that you and I can bring forth the Christ consciousness, the divine, into our world. And the way that you do that is through, quite simply, but quite challenging, to change your thoughts so that way you can change the world. And in the Unity teachings, there's this concept called the law of mind action, which basically says that when you change your thoughts, you have a similar thought, you have a similar thought, you have a similar thought, until eventually your mind changes, and then your behavior changes, and then your life and your world changes. So what are some of these divine Christ consciousness type thoughts? These are thoughts that lead to kindness, that lead to peace, forgiveness, love, things that we can extend to others, but also very much extend to ourselves. And so, just like in pregnancy, this is incredibly difficult to do this. It's arduous, it's things that are done in private. But yet, when we commit to doing it, we will birth transformation. We will birth change in our lives, in the world around us. Again, this sounds really great, but it is incredibly challenging. I had a situation in my own life a couple weeks ago, and I was with somebody who continued to give me unsolicited criticism. No one here has ever done that, right? No, okay. And it was about an area in my life in which I was incredibly insecure about. And he kept going after me with it. And I left that situation feeling incredibly raw, vulnerable, angry. And then I was incredibly raw, angry, vulnerable at myself for having those kinds of thoughts. I thought to myself, I should be over this by now, right? Right? I work at a church, for crying out loud. I devoted myself to unity teachings. But then I fought through those emotions. I wrestled. I allowed myself to be completely human in what I was feeling with those emotions. And so I wrestled with it for about a weekend, and John, my fiance, was incredibly patient with me as I was just kind of in a frenzy. And as I wrestled with it, though, I came across this concept of radical self-acceptance, where you allow yourself to completely feel what it is that you're feeling in that moment. You're not spiritually bypassing, you're not positive thinking it away. You allow yourself to be. And paradoxically, when I allowed myself to fully feel my emotions, it kind of dissipated. The intensity of it dissipated. And so then I was free to start my meditations, my affirmations, that I was good, that I was worth it, that I was created in the image of God. All of those kinds of things, I was able to do that because I had allowed myself to fully feel. And in that situation, I was able to be both fully human and also fully divine. And so I will leave this with you. How can you bring about your own Christ consciousness into the world in 2023?
David Monticalvo. So there's a story in Scripture of Jesus, right? And you all probably have heard it if you haven't read it or you've heard about it, that when he comes to Jerusalem and he sees all the things in the temple, he turns over the tables and has a fit. He has a fit. So being angry is a spiritual practice, guys. If Jesus could do it, right? If other spiritual leaders can express their anger, it is absolutely a way to release it so that we can bring about the change that we see. And it is a clue to us about our values and what we stand for, right? So what we look at this holiday to be is that consciousness that knows there is only one person, one power, one presence, one way of being in the world, one way of being with each other, that is love. Now, there's lots of different facets of that. There's lots of different ways to be, but there's only one. We are only one extension of divine love in multiple facets. This song that Callie's gonna sing talks about that awakening consciousness in us, that truth that changes everything.
Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary soul rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angels' voices on night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. Oh, night, oh, holy night, oh, night divine. Truly we're taught to love one another. The law is love, and the gospel is peace. Chains shall be broken for honoring each other, and love's name all oppression does cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus rise we, sweet hymns of love, live only love's claim. Rise from your knees, oh, hear the angel voices,
So I've said this before, for those of you who haven't heard it, Jesus wasn't Christian. He was Jewish. He was a Jew living in a Roman, Greco-Roman pagan world, surrounded by Babylonians, by Syrians, by Egyptians, by Romans, by Greeks, in this multicultural world that he lived in. He came and he taught and he demonstrated. 2,000 years ago, we're still trying to figure out what it all means for us, what it means for the world. But in the years that followed him on this earth, many things happened. And one of them was the merging of the teachings of Jesus with the spiritual practices and teachings of paganism. Now, paganism was widespread because it was the religion of the Roman Empire. And everywhere they went, they brought it. So pagan traditions, which are more earthbound and have to do with more nature and balance and multiple deities, were all incorporated into early Christianity. And today, we practice pagan spiritual practices without knowing it. Right? And so what I wanted us to do, like lighting the Advent wreath, is a pagan ritual about bringing in light and evergreens in to the home, to the hearth, into our consciousness. And to talk to us more about that and what we mean, I give you our own Tylor Krueger.
Good morning, good morning. So we know that beliefs evolve. A lot of times in history, rituals will outlast the beliefs. We end up doing things and we go, why? There's reasons we light a candle, but is there a belief behind it? So beliefs evolve and they should evolve. Sometimes they're taken over in history by certain conquerors, or a new religion might take over certain beliefs. But I just want to say that beliefs evolving is normal and natural. And so when we look back to the time of Stonehenge, way back when we made those stone circles that were all around Northern Europe, Stonehenge is a really famous one, they were celebrating, amongst other things, it was kind of like a solar calendar made out of a circle of rocks. And so one thing that they were studying was the winter solstice. The time of the year when the days are getting shorter, a lot of people would believe that the sun was losing its power. The sun's becoming weaker and weaker as the days become shorter and the nights become longer. And then in the northern hemisphere, it got a lot colder. The trees would lose their leaves. Even to this day, we bring in these evergreens, these things that don't lose their leaves. The juniper and the holly don't lose their leaves, but the other trees did. So imagining, back in Stonehenge, they're waiting for the sunrise to come, and it's cold, but they're staying awake, waiting on what we think of now as December 21st. I don't know if they had a date on it because that was more of a Julian Gregorian calendar that came later. But this was about 2,500 years ago. They're sitting there waiting for the sun to rise between two rocks. If you stood in the right place on the right day, you would watch the sun rise between these two rocks. And that was a symbol that the days were no longer going to become shorter, but turn the tide, and the days would become longer once again. This was a moment of hope when we could say that the spring would come, that the next season of crops would come, that the livestock would give birth again, that we would turn this season of the year away from this coldness of struggling to survive back into the hope of the light. Today we call it the season of light, but back then, this winter solstice, really realizing that it was the counting of the days until we could have faith again that the light would return to us and we wouldn't be in the darkness. It would again return the season, the clock of the year would continue turning. So that was around 2500 BC, and then we go to 500 BC with Rome. I'm skipping a whole lot, of course, but this is 500 BC. We had Saturnalia and Calends, these two festivals that happened. Saturnalia celebrating the god Saturn, the god of agriculture, and this Saturnalia festival was December 17th through 23rd. There was a lot of feasting, a lot of carnival, a lot of gift giving, which we still do gift giving today. But also Calends was their celebration of the new year for January 1st. So these are some of the roots, 500 BC. Then Julius Caesar, around 45 AD, he makes the Julian calendar, and he decides that it's December 25th is going to be the date of the winter solstice. Now, we think of it as the 21st because the Julian calendar had some errors in it. In those errors, the date ended up moving. But back then, back in ancient Rome, it was 45 AD. December 25th was winter solstice every year. It was that time when the days would become longer, that the warmth would begin to return, that the hope of the light instead of the struggle of winter. And so this Roman paganism spread all throughout Europe. We also know that Helios was declared to be born, Helios the sun, around 200 AD. On the calendar, it's been noted that Helios was born on December 25th, the same day as the winter solstice. Again, the turning of that dial from the darkness to when the sun is regaining its strength is when the sun is born again each year. And then we also have the temple that was dedicated on December 25th, 274 AD, that temple to the Sol Invictus, Sol being sun, Invictus being invincible. So again, December 25th, we have all of these things that were happening back in Rome. Now, interesting, in the early Christian church, they were really focused and celebrating the death and the resurrection, the moment when this person who was crucified was then resurrected. What a miracle. So the early church was really focused on this death and resurrection thing. But then the Gnostics around the 4th century, they began to theorize that Jesus was not a physical man, it was a spirit body person. Jesus, the spirit body, the Gnostics said. So that makes it a lot easier to say, oh yeah, they crucified a spirit person, and the spirit person then resurrected later. So what did the church do? They began to say, oh no, don't say that it was a spirit man, say that it was a physical man. So they began to say that the birth, coming through a physical womb, became more important around the 4th century. It wasn't as important before this. So then the first calendar is in 354 AD that actually lists out different pagan holidays, but also lists December 25th as the birth of Jesus Christ. The first year was 354 AD. It wasn't an early belief, but it was a belief that became important later. So all of this, I want to say that we still perform this hope for the light, the hope for the winter to ebb away, for spring to come again, the hope for the new children or the new livestock to be born, the hope for the next season of the harvest to feed us again, the hope to come out of the coldness and the darkness, this celebration of the light. And so I invite you this holiday season to consider the birth of the sun, the season of the light, and also the birth of the Son of God within us, the season of light, this holiday season. Thank you.
When my husband and I, JD, traveled to Rome about 16 years ago, we got to go underneath St. Peter's Basilica. It was literally built on top of a pagan necropolis, a cemetery, and they've now excavated it, and you can go in it. In one of the tombs, there is a painting of Apollo's chariot driven by horses riding across, and Apollo, in the pagan tradition, brought the sun into the world. But in this drawing, there is not Apollo in the chariot, it's Jesus in the chariot. And the mixing of the two religions becoming one was happening in the early centuries of this new millennia. So I bring this up because all of this doesn't matter unless it is in our lives, unless we incorporate these spiritual teachings and these traditions and consciously choose to use them. Right? Because a lot of people will say Merry Christmas, a lot of people will celebrate the holidays and exclude people. Exclude people that they don't like, exclude people that they believe has harmed them, have done them wrong. And what this holiday is about is the birth of our own light, our own power, our own love, so that we can transcend anything that has happened to us and understand that that happening is for us to demonstrate love, to demonstrate peace, to demonstrate the power of our eternal soul. It makes no difference what happens on the outside. Everything is what happens on the inside. And in that tradition, what we're going to talk about next is that in this last 50, 100 years, a tradition has emerged from people of African descent that shows how we can incorporate spiritual teachings from our ancestors and create a holiday of meaning for ourselves in our lives right now. And that power and that presence transcends anything that has happened to us when we claim our power and strength and demonstrate what is happening through us. I give you Misa Malone.
Good morning, Unity family. Make sure they check the mic. I always sing. Now I'm talking. So I'm here to speak with you about Kwanzaa. So for me, Kwanzaa, as a child, Kwanzaa was the day I got extra presents. So in my house, we had a tree. We put it up on the 15th of December. I would have presents on Christmas Day under the tree. But on January 1st, I would have to find the presents my mother had hidden in the tree for Kwanzaa. It wasn't until I was in high school, I was voted most likely to overthrow the government. I was a very militant child. But it wasn't until I was in high school that I actually found out what Kwanzaa really was. Because as that kid, it was, ooh, presents. And generally, Christmas Day was a lot of presents. Kwanzaa would generally be 2, maybe 1, very nice, somewhat expensive, very personal gift. We're talking lots of thought, lots of intent went into these gifts that I would then have to find in the tree. So Kwanzaa was created in the 60s for descendants of the African diaspora. For those of you who were here when I talked on Black History Month, we know that the descendants of the African diaspora have gone everywhere, right? The whole world. Africans were transported against their will to all kinds of countries. But this particular country had probably the worst experience for those peoples. And in the 60s is a really pivotal time, right? There was a lot of awakening, a lot of rebirth. It was almost a Renaissance period to a certain degree. A gentleman decided, you know what? We need our own holiday. We need our own thing. And what he did is he created Kwanzaa. It was manufactured. Now, Kwanzaa is from December 26th through January 1st. It is a 7-day period. Now, Ngusu Saba, those are the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. December 26th is day 1. January 1 is day 7. Every single day has a different focus. December 26th is Umoja. Umoja is Swahili. All of these words are Swahili. Okay, just put that out there. Umoja means unity. It's a day where the family and the community come together and work towards furthering unity and unification. December 27th is Kujichagulia, which is self-determination. It's a day that you take for yourself to define how you want to be. You name yourself. You create yourself. You speak for yourself. December 28th is Ujima. Collective work and responsibility. This is a day where the community comes together and they say, okay, we need to build our community. How can we make our community great? No one should be suffering. No one should be struggling. Everyone should have enough. How do we make that happen? Which takes us to December 29th, which is Ujamaa, cooperative economics. Now, there's a lot of cultures in this country, a lot of immigrants in this country who are excellent examples of cooperative economics. Unfortunately, children of the African diaspora, probably not that one. But basically what it means is rotating your money in your communities. You bring money from outside, from your businesses and your jobs, and you spend it where you can sow seeds in your community to build on the collective work, to build on everything that comes before. December 30th actually takes us to purpose, which is Nia. What can we do as a collective to build and develop our community further? Again, always with the unification. Always with us moving together in community as a unit, as a unified organism to better the experience of everyone involved. And then December 31st, creativity. Let's think outside the box. Okay, so we know what we know, but what don't we know? How can we expand? How can we, I don't know, get creative, be inspired, be innovative, iterate. And then finally, January 1st is Imani. Imani is faith. You have done 6 days of work, and now you have the faith that you will believe with your heart and your mind and carry that through until next year. That's Ngusu Saba. That is Kwanzaa. And on Imani, they do exchange gifts. However, they're handmade. They are gifts from the heart. They're gifts that you have made and created with your own hands with very special purpose and intention for the person that you're giving the gift to. Because that is also a part of Ngusu Saba. What is mine is yours. What is yours is mine, because it is all ours. Is that not a unity principle? For those of you who are new, I'm sorry. My name is Misa Malone. I am your minister of music. I have a tendency to minister when the minister don't necessarily want me to. But I will say, in unity, for those of you who are new, we have 5 principles, but honestly, I believe it's been stated, if you only believe in the first principle, you don't need the other 4. We believe that there's one power and one presence active in the universe and in your lives at all times, God. One power, one presence, God. That we are all a part of a larger whole, that we are all connected metaphysically, energetically, synergistically, metaphysically. I think I said that already. On a cellular, on a molecular, on an atomic level. So looking at Kwanzaa from a unity perspective, the world is our community. The world. This community. You are my community. San Francisco is my community. California. Let's just keep going, right? So I should be using umoja, kuji, chagulia, ujima, ujamaa, nia, kuumba, and imani every single day for every single one of you. Those are the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Funny story, Kwanzaa, K-W-A-N-Z-A-A. So the gentleman who created Kwanzaa, he's like, I'm gonna call it Kwanzaa. And I think it was either his daughter or his granddaughter, she had a favorite number. Her favorite number was 7. So he decided, okay, we're gonna make Kwanzaa have 7 letters, because 7 is her favorite number. And that's why it's K-W-A-N-Z-A-A. To honor her, because she is the newer generation. And by giving her a personal connection, he's guaranteeing buy-in. He's guaranteeing that not only will she honor it, she has a personal connection to it. So we have, similar to all the Christian and pagan faiths, there's also light involved in Kwanzaa observances. This is called the kinara. And there are 7 candles. 3 are green, 3 are red, and 1 is black. For those of you who understand African history, red, black, green, red, black, gold, and green are typically interchangeable colors in that culture. The red stands for the blood that is spilled. The green stands for the land, the mother who nurtures and sustains us. And the black stands for the people. Now, Kwanzaa does not have any carols. But also, I believe, I forget the date, but way back, there was a movement to go back to Africa. Some of the descendants of the African diaspora in the United States decided we're going back to Africa. And they went to Liberia. It was an exodus. And they have an anthem. It's a combination of 4 languages. It's Watusi, Igbo, Zulu, and 1 other. And I'm going to light the kinara and sing Nkosi Sikelele for you. As soon as I find out what Ken did with the lighter. There we go. Nkosi sikelele Afrika, malopongondi supondo hayo, zizwa imitondo zo yetu. Nkosi sikelela, tina lo sapo hayo, o Samoya, O Samoya, o yink, oele, Nkosi sikelele, tina lo safoayo. Ashe.
Ms. Misa Malone. Okay, this is going to drive me crazy if this one isn't lit, so. And I know there's all those out there that was going to drive that crazy too, so I'll do this for you. There we go. Now we can rest. We are unapologetically inclusive. And we also understand that we could not possibly touch all the different faiths and traditions that all of you bring to this. But what we hope by this service today that has opened and become possible for you is to embrace your own spiritual journey to this one shared place of this understanding that today is about the birth of the good, the divine in you. Today is about how we open to the infinite possibilities of this moment, this planet, and create together. Christ is the English word for Christos in Greek, because the scriptures were written in Greek, and in Hebrew, Christos is Messiah, which means the anointed one. So consider yourselves anointed. You have been brought to this moment, and you are the anointed one to make this happen. That this moment is yours to step into, whether it be in a Jewish tradition, in a Kwanzaa tradition, in an African diaspora tradition, in a pagan tradition, in no tradition whatsoever, a secular humanist tradition, a Christian tradition, a New Thought tradition. They are all aspects and facets of the one light. the one presence here on earth. And we come together today to say thank you for the light. Thank you for the infinite possibility. Thank you for this opportunity to remember the truth, to live as the truth on this planet, and to create something new. A world that works for everyone, no exceptions, no exclusions. A world that we all long for, that we see is possible, and we make it so with every step we take, with every word we speak, and with every breath. The preciousness of breath. As I stand here today, I know my mother is getting closer and closer to her last breath. But I also know that she does not go away. She just leaves this body. And for that truth, for each and every one of you's light and love, breath and wholeness, I am truly grateful and truly in awe. Namaste.